Hello, and welcome to the Road Coach Podcast, where I share my teachings with you from life on the road. For those of you that don't know, this is the inaugural episode of the podcast. I'll introduce myself. My name is Rob, and Rob Craig, and I hail from London, Ontario, Canada. Currently coming to you from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, as the podcast title would dictate. I pretty much live on the road. So, why have I decided to make a podcast? Well, we'll see if this ever meets the light of day. But the reason I thought that I should do this is because I spend an inordinate amount of time on the road for my job, for pleasure, with my family, and alone. And for example, last year, I think my official number of nights away with one hotel chains that I frequent was 125 nights. So, and that doesn't include Airbnb, that doesn't include other hotel chains. So I'm on the road a lot. And I think that a lot of people, especially a lot of people that I meet on the road for work, there are a lot of people that are in the same boat as me. And I find it increasingly difficult if you're not proactive to be able to keep not only a routine but to keep focused on your goals for yourself. Keep focused on your family while you're away. Ensure little things like you're eating right, you're keeping up with your fitness, you're getting enough sleep, you're getting the right kind of sleep. All of these things are very, very difficult to do when you travel a lot, and it mainly has to do with inconsistencies, right? I mean, you're out of your element when you're traveling. You're in different hotel rooms, you're in different cities, there's different restaurants. If you're like me, you're often interacting with colleagues on the road, and so that comes with certain expectations in terms of when your day starts and when your day ends and what you do after hours. A lot of work trips for me used to turn into, let's call it, major social events. And it would lead to burning the candle on both ends, and I would end up going back home and not being the best father or the best husband that I could be because I was just exhausted, right? I mean, I couldn't keep up. I couldn't go away for 3, 4, 5 days in a row and only get 5 hours of sleep at night, and a lot of the time be hungover, and then go home and think that I could put my best foot forward for the people that I was really doing this for. And for a long time, I got lost. I'll stop saying if I'm going to keep doing this podcast, so I'll learn these things as I go. But it's important that I get this stuff out there so that at least I've started it, because I think that's the most important part with any sort of endeavor like this, is that you at least start, and it doesn't matter how bad it is because probably no one's going to see it anyways, but at least it's out there in the ethos that you can then learn from. Much like writing, I find. If you get something down on paper, or you publish a blog, or you write a book, or you simply post a poem anonymously on the internet, or you do an Instagram post, at least it's out there, and you've made yourself vulnerable to the point where you really learn from what you're doing because you can see it from an outsider's perspective. So anyways, that's what this is. This is attempt number 1. Where was I? Found that for a long time I was claiming to work as hard as I was so that I could give my family the life that I wanted, or the life that they deserved. Sorry. Um, but I was focused so much on doing a good job and then rewarding myself for it that by the time I got home, I couldn't give my family the time and the focus that they needed. Um, so it began to feel like it was all for naught, in the sense that I claimed that I was working so hard and spending so much time on the road to give them a better life. The same token, they didn't have me there most of the time because of this. And when I was there, I wasn't really present because, frankly, I needed home for a rest. And so it became going home to recover just to leave again for the next work trip. And so, anyways, I realized this could not continue. And I realized that I was sort of speaking out of both sides of my mouth, in the sense that I can't uh, I can't claim that I'm doing everything for the family if I'm not really there for the family when I'm. So this became a problem for me to solve. And I began to solve it by realizing that if I'm going to be away for work consistently, then I need to make sure that I'm taking care of myself to the point that I can be healthy enough when I'm home to give my family the care and the attention that they deserve, and not be a burden on them, essentially. And so this has come about over the course of probably, essentially the beginning of the pandemic. So we're in April now, 2023. This is going back to, probably March, April, of 2020. So 3 years now, it's taken me a lot of soul searching and research and reading and practicing and experimenting, to figure out what really works for me and where I needed to sort of shift my attitudes and my behaviors, so that if I'm going to work in such a demanding career on the road, that I have the habits and practices in place, and the minimum standards, uh, to be able to make this successful and make my family realize that they are the most important thing to me. And there's an ancient Greek poet that has a really good quote. His name was Archilochus, and he's not probably one of the most famous ancient Greeks when it comes to philosophy or poetry or war or any of the famous things that Greeks are known for. But he said that human beings do not rise to the level of their expectations. They fall to the level of their training. And I've always found that quote very powerful, in the sense that it doesn't really relate to me to training so much these days, although it did in the past with different, um, sports training and fighting and stuff like that. But today, what it means to me is that human beings fall to the level of habits, or their minimum standards. And so if we don't create a minimum standard for ourselves in different aspects of our lives, and by standard I mean things that are non-negotiable. If we don't create certain things we don't define things that are non-negotiable in our lives, then directions that do not resonate with our true selves. And so we need to define those standards and live by them as a rule of who we are, not just how we would like to act, if that makes sense. The reason I bring that up is that it's taken me a very long time of life, on the road and traveling, to realize that you really do need to define these things in a more extreme way when you live away from home and away from your own bed and environment and comfort zone most of the time. Because when you're away from your comfort zone, there are just so many more distractions, there are so many more temptations, there are so many more uncertainties, and it becomes much more difficult to be able to stick to what you would consider acceptable and or the habits that would dictate, or that would dictate. That's not the right word. The habits that would portray your best self, let's say. So, anyways, I'm rambling, and I realize that I'm rambling, but that's okay, I think, for the first episode, because I think this whole thing should be slightly philosophical. And my idea here is that I'm going to teach what I've learned from a lot of different aspects. So we're going to talk about planning for travel. We're going to talk about simple things like rewards programs and where you should focus. But we're also going to talk about supplements that I take and ways that I focus on being my best mental self, my best physical self, my best spiritual self, my best emotional self when I'm on the road, and how I stick to what puts me in the best position to succeed, both in my career and when I return back home. So this is going to be a multifaceted sort of, I don't know, let's call it a mini series at this point. And I'll try and define a theme, we'll say, for every episode that is in relation to something that took me some time to learn, but once I learned it, I found it very valuable, and so I've implemented it in my travel life. And it can be anything from, travel hacks to packing hacks to when to arrive at the airport, to which cards to use, to which lounges to use, to which loyalty programs to join, but also what to eat, what to drink, what not to drink, to stay in shape, how to make sure that you're not bending your standards based on who you're with, how to set boundaries when you're on the road. The idea here is that together we can become better travelers. If we're always going to be out of our element, how do we define our element when all we have around us is uncertainty? And I've taken a lot of time to figure that out, a lot of reading, and a lot of self-reflection. And none of what I do is perfect, and I make mistakes all the time. But I've learned a lot while trying to optimize this system that is life on the road. And so if you'd like to learn from what I've learned, then stick around for a little while. And I'm happy to share my knowledge. If you have any suggestions or tips or things that I should consider for upcoming episodes, feel free to reach out to me. Leave some comments below. I'll leave links to all my socials and ways to contact me so that you can reach out with suggestions. I'm open to interviews and different ways of doing this. I think to start, what I'll do is a couple of episodes based on some of the more key things that I've learned that I think are the most important for travel, especially when you travel as much as I do, and we'll see what it evolves into. I'm hoping that in the beginning I can launch 2 episodes a week. I'm thinking Tuesday and Friday maybe, to both YouTube and then audio as well, and then we'll go from there and see where this leads. If it's working out and you're liking it, let me know. If it's horrible and you hate it, feel free to let me know as well, or just watch something else. But I've learned a lot from the last few years of spending more than 50% of my time on the road, and I think for those that are just beginning travel for work, or those that feel like they're stuck in a rut, I think that I can probably help with some of the things I've learned, and I hope you stick around for the ride. So with that, I'll sign off of episode 1 from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and we'll see everyone soon. Cheers.